What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Get It and Don Show. Today, I am joined by a 2024 boxing U.S. Olympian, Jajaira Gonzalez. Without further ado, let's get straight into the episode.
Let's get straight into the episode, guys.
First off, I want to ask, how intense is a training camp for boxing?
It's pretty intense, but it also depends on like where you're at in camp. I think it starts off intense and then it tapers down towards the end, which is, I feel like, how it should be. But then sometimes it starts a little slow, then it gets super intense, and then it slows back down. But it's all, I've been doing this for a long time. So for me, it's kind of just like second nature. I just do it. But I think it gets more intense when you have to lose weight. I hate losing weight. So cutting on top of that training, I sometimes question myself, like, why did I decide I wanted to do the sport? Out of everything I could have been, I decided to be a fighter. But then, when I make the weight and stuff, I'm like, okay, like it wasn't that bad.
And for cutting weight, how does a fighter actually establish what weight they want to cut to? Because there's like times where they make massive cuts. How do you make that decision?
I guess it just depends on. So I've been fighting 132 since I was a youth, but I originally was fighting 125. When I went up to 132, I went up because at the time only 3 Olympic weight classes were allowed at the Olympics, and it was 112, 132, and 165. So me being 125, I was like, okay, like I need to move up to 132. And then I got a little bit too comfortable. And then my weight, like I was cutting from like 150, but at the time I was a kid and I didn't know how to cut. I didn't know what to be eating and stuff. So it was a lot harder to cut when I was younger. And now I like to walk around no more than 140 pounds. Just recently, though, I had surgery. So my weight cuts have been a little bit different just because I had gained so much weight from, I'm going from like 2 to 3 workouts in a day to not even being able to walk. So I gained a lot of weight, and this last weight cut, like I had to start cutting back down, and I was just like, yeah, I don't like this. But our dietitian with USA Boxing, like she helped me out a lot and gave me like a good meal plan on top of my training. So it was easier, but yeah, I don't like cutting weight.
So when you said about first started fighting, here's a question for that. How did it feel to actually get punched in the face in your first fight? What was like your reaction to that?
In my first fight, I didn't really think much about it. I think it was like my first sparrings. I started when I was 8 years old. So my first sparrings, like I did not like getting hit. I didn't even like boxing. I hated it. I didn't want to do it, but I just did it because my dad just forced me to do it. But I remember like sparring my brothers, and one of my brothers would hit me really hard. And I used to cry, but it never made me stop. Like I was so angry and I was like crying because it hurt that I was trying to hurt him back, I guess, like punch him more. So when I got into a fight, like for my first fight, the girls that I was competing against, like they didn't hit nearly as hard as my brother. So to me, it was just like, whatever.
Oh wow, yeah. And so yeah, it goes with the whole thing of you had that perspective of it hurts, so now I want to hit you back. Like I don't want to just go down here. I want to bring something back to you.
Right.
So let's talk about the Olympics a little bit here. How hard is it to actually make the Olympics in boxing? Because some people are like, "Oh, my goal is Olympics. My goal is Olympics." How hard is it to actually like be in that position?
It's for me, I don't want to say that it wasn't hard because it was, but me having the experience that I have, I think it's it was a little bit easier than people that are just now like kind of starting out because first, like you have to be on the team. You have to win nationals at the end of the year, which is December. And then you go to a selection camp in January, and then you get evaluated by the coaches at the Olympic Training Center based on your weight, your performance, if you're showing up to like meetings on times, like it all goes down to that. And whoever has the most points, whoever they feel like is doing better and who could do better internationally gets picked to be on the team. So then when you get picked on to be on the team, if you're on the team around the time that it's a qualifying tournament, you get first pick to try to qualify. So for us, like crazy thing about it was I wasn't even on the team for real because I had went down to 125 pounds again because the girl that was at 132 at the time had just won worlds. So I knew that if I went up against her, they were not going to give me the spot because she just proved that she could. I mean, you just won a world tournament against all like the best girls in the world. Like, so I went down to 125 and then I unfortunately lost my spot at that. And then God's timing and everything, the girl at 132 ended up not being on the team anymore. So they asked me if I wanted to like do a selection at that weight. I did. I won the selection. And then that was in June 2024. October of 2024 was the first qualifier. So since I was on the team, I got first go. And thank God, like I qualified first go. And then the Olympic trials happened in December of 2024. So those weight classes that had qualified, which I think were 5 of us altogether, they closed them. So anyone that like went to the
Mm,
trials at that weight class knew that they were just going to be like a number 2 because the spot was already taken.
wow.
Yeah, but then after that, it gets harder than that. Yeah, because the first qualifier was um it was like just like the Americas. So
Mm,
the competition's not terrible, but it's not as high as if you're competing against like the Asians and the European countries. Like once we qualified there, which I think was the easiest qualifier, you have to go up against everybody at the next 2, 3 qualifiers that they had. And that is a lot harder, I think.
yeah. So, kind of, I want to get your perspective on this because in some sports, people will start older and they won't start real young and they'll try to like go to try to become a pro at an older age. How hard is it for someone that, let's say, is 17, 18 to start
Mhm.
boxing compared to when you first start at like 5 or 6 years old?
You know, I don't think it's hard. I think it just depends on the person. Because if you're driven and you're disciplined enough and you like work hard and you have your goals, like I always say, like whatever anybody wants to do in life, like they can do it. It's just gonna take, you have to put the work in. Like my teammate started boxing, I think when she was 17, 18, and she qualified for the Olympic Games for 2024. Like, and then you got people that have been boxing since they were like 8, 9 and aren't able to do that. I think it really just depends on your work ethic and how bad you want it. Like you got to go for the things that you want in life.
Hmm. So then, last question here. How do you feel about the current state of women's boxing and where it's going?
I am so excited because I remember like, and I love this question because it makes me just feel so good that there's like so many women out here that are putting on for us. Because when I first started, like I said, boxing for the women were not allowed until 2012. And we only had 3 Olympic weight classes. So before then, I was in high school still when I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to go to the Olympics. And that's me in high school. Before that, when I started boxing at 8, I didn't really have a goal. I didn't have any female boxers that I looked up to because you didn't really hear about them. But then I remember like seeing Marlena Esparza And then Clarissa, our 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and just being like, wow, like I want to be like them. Like, you know, I'm seeing them on the commercials and things like that. So now there's so many women fighting, and there's so many of them doing great and putting on for like our next generation. And I'm like honored to be part of that generation for all the little girls. And honestly, like I see so many little girls boxing now, and those little girls are so sharp. Us back then, like I do not remember really seeing as many like sharp girls as they are now. Like some of them girls be fighting like little boys, and I'd just be so amazed, like, wow, the game is really changing.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I know things were a little wild, but thank you.